Thank you for watching QTV with the news. My name is SUMBWE. We take a look at stories making headlines. 3 suspects, among them a Ministry of Finance senior accountant, have been warned and cautioned in connection with the 51 houses seized by the Anti-Corruption Commission, suspected of being proceeds of crime. The Anti-Corruption Commission has arrested former Southern Province Permanent Secretary SUMBWE for corruption, and government has been challenged to state who it is consulting with regards to financial bailout in the absence of an IMF country representative. And now the news in detail. 3 suspects have been warned and cautioned in connection with the ownership of the 51 houses seized by the Anti-Corruption Commission in Lusaka, suspected to be proceeds of crime. Home Affairs Minister Stephen Kampyongo has told Parliament in a ministerial statement that this follows the conclusion of the investigations into the ownership of the houses in question. Mr. Kampyongo has named the suspects as Charles Luyana, a senior accountant at the Ministry of Finance, his wife Susan Sinkala, and a Copperbelt-based lawyer Charlie Chitala. He says the Joint Investigations Team, comprising officers from the Anti-Corruption Commission, Drug Enforcement Commission and the Zambia Police Service, conducted investigations and recorded warn and caution statements for concealment of properties believed to be proceeds of crime from the suspects. Mr. Kampyongo says a docket has since been opened and sent to the Director of Public Prosecutions for further action and guidance. He has explained that contrary to speculation and falsehoods that surrounded this matter, the flats were built between 2012 and 2014 and that the first tenant occupied his flat in 2014. The minister adds that investigations were instituted by Anti-Corruption Commission on the basis of a tip-off by members of the public.
It is in order, therefore, to leave this house in suspense so that we continue thinking that the owners of this house are members of the Patriotic Front, as it has been put as a innuendo from the time this matter came to light.
And as I see it, now that the minister has volunteered to render a ministerial statement, by extension, unless he doesn't have the information, he's ready to discuss.
Meanwhile, Mr. Kampyongo says United Party for National Development President Hakainde Hichilema did not produce any evidence relating to the owners of the said houses when he went to the ACC, but merely presented lamentations.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker has emphasized the point that we should not politicize, and we shouldn't use these cases to get political mileage. Because what is contained in this letter is nothing unusual apart from the same things and if I had all the time I didn't read but 4 pages. No credible substance to help the investigations. So that impression which was given that it was the evidence that was being taken there was just to deceive the nation. Because there's nothing here. And that's a reason why in our wisdom, the acting Director General responded in 1 page.
The Anti-Corruption Commission in Choma has arrested former Southern Province Permanent Secretary SUMBWE for corrupt practices. ACC Public Relations Manager Timothy Mono says Mr. SUMBWE, 64, has been arrested together with Chief Human Resource Management Officer Dago Chitendwe, aged 58. Mr. Mono says the duo has been arrested and charged with 1 count of abuse of authority of office, contrary to Section 21(1) Cap A of the Anti-Corruption Act No. 3 of 2012. Particulars of the offence are that SUMBWE and Dago Chitendwe, on dates unknown, but between 1st June 2016 and 30th September 2016 in Choma District, Southern Province, Zambia, being public officers jointly and whilst acting together, did abuse the authority of their office in the matter in which they facilitated the appointment of a laboratory assistant for Mukuni Secondary School, an act which was arbitrary and prejudicial to the interests and rights of the government and other persons. The duo has since been released on bond and will appear in court on 18th November 2019. Government has been challenged to state who it is consulting with regards to the financial bailout it is seeking in the absence of an International Monetary Fund IMF country representative. Former Finance Minister Ngandu Magande is interested to know whom government has been consulting since the last IMF country representative left Zambia in 2017. Mr. Magande says Finance Minister Bwalyangandu should also tell the nation when the IMF resident representative is expected to arrive following his recent discussions in Washington. In an interview with Q News, Mr. Magande believes having a new IMF resident representative is one of the issues Dr. Ngandu must have raised with the IMF. He is further of the view that being a new finance minister and having presented the 2020 national budget, Dr. Ngandu should have had a message for the IMF at the spring meetings. Mr. Magande states that the finance minister should thus be asked what he brought before the meetings, what the discussions were, and what the resolutions are.
As he comes now, I'm sure he's going to have a press conference because you and me and everybody is waiting to hear what he discussed there. When he comes, you ask him those questions to say, according to your preliminary discussions, when are you expecting the IMF to arrive? Ask him, what did you discuss when you went for the annual meeting? This minister is a new one. He just presented the budget 2 weeks ago. So, having gone there, it means he had a message for IMF. So, when he comes, please ask him for us to say, what did you take, what did you discuss, and what was the resolution? Give him the history to say the other IMF man left so such a time. After he left, who was the ministry consulting in Zambia? But if there was nobody, when are you expecting to get somebody now to come and help you with the program that you are going to enter into with the IMF?
Civil Society Scaling Up Nutrition Alliance has appealed to government to find ways of helping struggling farmers who have failed to pay the 400 kwacha contribution to access farming inputs under the Farmer Input Support Program, FISIP. CSO Sun Country Coordinator Matthews Muhuru says the alliance has received information that some peasant farmers who are beneficiaries of FISIP are failing to pay the 400 kwacha contribution required to access the inputs for the 2019-2020 farming season. Mr. Muhuru notes that with a majority of peasant farmers depending on farming as their source of income, the poor harvest in the 2018-2019 farming season impacted their livelihoods, with most of them failing to provide for their families, therefore cannot afford to pay the 400 kwacha for the inputs. He has suggested that government allows the vulnerable farmers to access inputs and let them pay later to enable them prepare adequately for the 2019-2020 farming season. Mr. Muhuru has warned that failure by the farmers to prepare adequately for the farming season will result in continued hunger in the country, as most of them will not harvest anything, thereby putting pressure on relief food distribution by government.
So the Farmer Input Support Program methodology requiring farmers to contribute 400 kwacha for them to be enrolled on the program, I think will be very difficult this year, knowing that most parts of the country were hard hit by drought and a lot of farmers have been left vulnerable. So information that has reached us as the Civil Society Scaling Up Nutrition Alliance is that most of the farmers who cannot pay would still need support from government. So we are calling on government to consider farmers who cannot afford to pay this 400 kwacha. Government has to figure out a way on how they can support these ones and they still get the farming inputs.
Political analyst Chris Zumani Zimba has expressed worry that political intolerance, especially between the two largest political parties in the country, the PF and UPND, is not showing any sign of abating. Dr. Zimba has told QTV News that this is evident from the political violence involving the two parties whenever by-elections are held, with the largest being the Kawama Council chairperson by-election, which resulted in the loss of a life. Dr. Zimba has since called on Zambians to continue demanding for the reconciliation of President Edgar Lungu and UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema and ensure that they embrace each other and show respect in public. He feels this will go a long way in healing the political tension that has existed between the two political parties. Law Association of Zambia LA's President Eddie Mwitwa has attributed the protraction in law reforms in the country to inadequate stakeholders' involvement. Mr. Mwitwa has observed that there is limited collaboration between the media, civil society organization and Zambia Law Development Commission, ZLDC, in issues of law reforms. He notes that the media and CSOs play a very critical role in the law reform processes. Speaking in Lusaka when he officiated at the ZLDC engagement meeting with civil society organizations and the media on law reform processes, Mr. Muitwa has, however, acknowledged the success scored by the ZLDC in law reforms. Mr. Muitwa has also pledged LAZ's commitment to working with the Commission in the law reform processes.
This meeting today presents an opportunity for the Zambia Law Development Commission to engage civil society to do the following. A, to discuss proposed areas of the law reform and ongoing law reform processes in Zambia. B, provide a platform for civil society and the media to recommend and advocate proposed areas for law reform and development. C, recommend interventions and avenues on how civil society and the media can collaborate with the Zambia Law Development Commission in disseminating information on law reform processes in the country. As an institution mandated by law to conduct legal reforms, it is imperative that all law reform processes should start with the Zambia Law Development Commission.
Speaking at the same event, ZLDC Director Hope Chanda says there are a lot of opportunities for civil society organizations to positively contribute to law reforms in the country.
Some of the positive changes that have come from our legislation have also come from litigation, and litigation has been led by civil society organizations. I think we have one of the most recent litigations that has gone before our courts was a decision by the Constitutional Court in a matter that was taken there by PRISCA, which is the prison, Dr. Malebeka should forgive me for not saying the full name, but I think PRISCA took a matter to the Constitutional Court and asked the court to determine whether or not prisoners could vote. And as a result of the decision of the Constitutional Court, we are now seeing a review in our electoral legislation to facilitate voting by persons in incarceration.
Home Affairs Minister Stephen Kampyongo has noted the need for well-managed migration policies that are responsive to human rights and gender to be promoted in the country. Speaking during the launch of the Zambia Migration Profile and Migration Governance Indicators, Mr. Kampyongo says Zambia recognizes the importance of migration in contributing to national development. Hence, the country is making significant effort to achieve key milestones on migration data. He says government is currently developing policies aimed at addressing aspects of migration and fitting into the national development agenda. Mr. Kampyongo is therefore optimistic that the two launched documents will give the country the much-needed impetus to embark on the development of a comprehensive national migration policy. We have a report.
Zambia lies at the heart of Central Southern Africa and has land borders with 8 countries, among them the DRC, Angola, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe. Because of its geographic location, the migration dynamics in Zambia are complex, as it is a country of origin, transit, and destination for migrants. Zambia, like many other countries, however, experiences challenges with the availability of data, which hinders the country's capacity to understand its migration dynamics and ability to develop appropriate policies. It is against this background that the country has today launched the Zambian Migration Profile and the Migration Governance Indicators that will help bring out comprehensive data on migration to be used for planning and policy making. Home Affairs Minister Stephen Kampyongo officiated at the event.
The government of the Republic of Zambia, led by His Excellency Dr. Edgar Chabalungu, is already developing policies to address the aspects of migration and fit them into the national development agenda. Dear ladies and gentlemen, migration is a reality. Migration is a reality that can neither be prevented nor ignored. It happens voluntarily or involuntarily, as triggered by man-made or natural causes. It is therefore important that we promote well-managed migration policies that are responsive to human rights and gender.
The United Nations and the International Organization for Migration are key partners in addressing issues of migration in any country, and they were present at the launch.
Zambia remains committed to supporting government and partners in their governance issues and in Zambia, and towards the principle that humane and orderly migration benefits individuals and society alike. IOM's vision is for a world in which migrants move as a matter of genuine choice rather than as a desperate necessity, in which migration is well governed as an enabler of development and for the benefit of all.
I therefore wish to commend the government of the Republic of Zambia for its proactive efforts in achieving this milestone through the launch of the Migration Profile today. The Migration Profile is the first comprehensively compiled overview of migration data in Zambia.
Nakaonga reporting for QTV News in Lusaka.
Food Agriculture Organization FAO Country Representative Dr. George Okech has described the amount of resources and funds allocated to research in the country's agriculture sector as negligible. Dr. Okech says government should focus on availing resources that will encourage increased and enhanced research in the agriculture sector, especially with the adverse effects of climate change. He adds that increased research will help the country attain crop diversification that will work for farmers in different parts of the country.
Because it's only in agricultural research that we can be innovative and get new results and try those results, transfer the technology to our own farmers. But if you look at what the government has allocated for this coming financial year into research, it's very, very low. So I don't know how we are going to manage that. And it's very critical, especially right now that we are getting into this climate change effects, looking at the effects of climate change. We really need to address them, because first of all we need to get into research, look at early maturing varieties, drought tolerant seeds, but all these need research. We need trials depending on which agricultural zones. So my comment is that the allocation, budget allocation into research has been so little, negligible. So I think the government really needs to improve on that.
The Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources has launched its 2019-2021 Strategic Plan and Balanced Scorecard. The strategic plan provides an operational framework and strategic direction to realize the mission and vision of the ministry, while contributing to the 4 of the 5 developmental pillars of the 7th National Development Plan. Speaking at the launch, Lands and Natural Resources Minister Jean Kapata said the focus during the strategy period will be to contribute to, among other goals, economic diversification and job creation. Ms. Kapata says the strategic plan will also be used to create a conducive governance environment for a diversified and inclusive economy as enshrined in the 7th National Development Plan. She states that in order to achieve the objectives of the plan, there is, however, need for workers at the ministry to abandon the attitude of doing things in a business-as-usual manner.
It is envisioned that at the end of the strategic plan period, my ministry will achieve the following. 1, land administration excellence resulting in efficient land allocation and administration. 2, sustainable natural resources management resulting in a sound climate resilient and productive ecosystem. And 3, operational excellency resulting in effective and efficient service delivery. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources will not work in isolation as it carries out its mandate.
And Ms. Kapata says the launch of a client service delivery charter will allow open and transparent approach to service delivery in the quest to achieve objectives outlined in the strategic plan.
It is also important to note that the client service charter is linked to the Ministry 2019-2021 strategic plan, in that it aims to take responsibility for actions in the discharge of our duties, serve our esteemed clients fairly in accordance with their needs, maintain the highest standard of service delivery in the execution of our duties, and be neutral in the handling of issues pertaining to land administration and natural resource management. In addition, the service charter is intended to help all of us put obligations of the ministry above personal interest and ensure that individually and corporately we conduct ourselves in a manner that is beyond reproach.
Kanchiria Member of Parliament Martin Malama says there is nothing personal in his repeated call on the UPND to explain its alleged links to the Africa Liberal Network. Mr. Malama says if it is true the UPND is a member of an organization that supports homosexuality, the people of Zambia need to know why. He has told QTV News that UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema should therefore tell the nation whether or not his party is aligned with the Africa Liberal Network.
So I continue to urge, in fact challenge, the UPND leader Mr. Hakainde Hichilema to explain why. Let him come out and explain to the Zambian people. This is not a personal fight. This is for the Zambian people. The Zambian people themselves are the ones who need to know. We as Zambians, a cultured nation, a Christian nation.
Rufunsa District Commissioner Judith Chama has challenged pastors' wives to help curb the vice of pastors taking advantage of female congregants and having sexual relations with them. Ms. Chama has expressed concern and disappointment at the behavior of some pastors who seemingly take advantage of the female congregants in exchange for prayers. She has called on the pastors' wives to help curb the vice by leading exemplary lives and teaching children, especially the girl child, good morals that will protect them and make them grow into responsible people and avoid being lured into sexual relations by the pastors. Ms. Chama is concerned that the scourge is eroding the confidence that congregants and members of the communities have in pastors and church leaders.
I am a problem in the Abusa Achitamchende, Abusa Abilamana, Abusa Sakala Bayumba, Abusa Banji, Chifukwa Chayi, Bayani, Deva Menzango Chiti. Mpingo za tsoma mpingo yosiyana imwe mpingo yanu mose ndibana banu banje mwena kwakwilira ndimwe banki y'amavuto yaneyo ayina kukwesa kuli imwe azimayi wakukomplena kuli imwe mozaona akazawabusa alikhala bwanji nabusa bawo naise nkwameti zako bako sichocho muno mufusa mastori yakaka babusa wachitaba kuti abusa wachitaba kuti abusa wanagwira nakazaveni abusa wanagwira na church choir member abusa wanachitaba njimwa tiene kufaka konzero tiene twasubire bwino abusa kuti wasebenze bwino ngati busa choka panyumba ya bwino bamutesa bwino bamusambika bwino ishikonze kuzaenda bwino nabana bazawo menga twabusa everyday nakazi wawo kundana chapi wakati watamangisane payani so tiene tigwire mpingo yatu bwino bwino tingakale tosiyana mipingo kati mulungu umozi wa neti tiene tikuzire kuyamba kumberana na wazaka.
The Ministry of Health has clarified that there is currently no written regulation that guides at what age young people can start accessing contraceptives. Chief Nursing Officer for Adolescent Health, Chowa Kasengele, says the age of 16 has however been adopted as the age at which adolescents can access contraceptives in public health facilities. Mrs. Kasengele says in situations where a girl child below the age of 16 becomes pregnant, it remains the discretion of a health worker to decide whether such a person should be given contraceptives. She has told QTV News that given such a situation, her ministry is working on a document on the age of consent, which will harmonize the policy environment for adolescent health in the country.
But we are happy with the direction, with the support from the ministry, that we need to come up with a document stating the age of consent. And the age of consent is not only enshrined to sexual reproductive health, no. There are so many things which affects a young person. Even when a young person needs to go for surgery, we've got our laws in Zambia or in the hospitals which health workers have to follow. A child can't consent on their own. You only consent for care at 21 years. Now in the case where you have a young child you have a young person who is pregnant. If there is need for example, a cesarean section, it may mean that person can't consent for themselves because of the age, which may be seen as a barrier. So what we are doing as Ministry of Health, working with other 9 ministries like Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Religious Affairs is also a very important ministry. So we need to harmonize everything around us in the provision of this care.
To end the news, we recap on stories making headlines. 3 suspects, among them a Ministry of Finance senior accountant, have been warned and cautioned in connection with the 51 houses seized by the Anti-Corruption Commission, suspected of being proceeds of crime. The Anti-Corruption Commission has arrested former Southern Province Permanent Secretary Sibanze Simuchoba for corruption, and government has been challenged to state who it is consulting with regards to the financial bailout in the absence of the IMF country representative. On that note, we end the news. Thank you for watching.